Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our program spotlights people in our community who are involved in activities designed to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host. The commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guest today is Detective Tom Pyles, who is the founder of the Blue Ribbon Project. Tom, welcome to Annapolis Mosaics.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk.
Okay. Well, what is the Blue Ribbon Project? What's it all about? What is its mission?
Well, it almost a little bit of a fluke, if you will. As a child, I grew up in foster care. I was removed from my home due to abuse. That was many years ago. Later became a detective with the police department and working with child abuse victims and things like that. Kind of started seeing a need. Initially, it was for adult survivors of abuse. There's a lot of like drug addiction, alcoholism, things like that, depression, PTSD. So it was more of a resources for adult survivors of child abuse. As time went on, I started to add some more programs. One of the programs we added was called Backpacks of Love, and then from there it just exploded. So it was initially kind of small. I didn't intend for it to grow the way it did, and as time went on, it came on. So our mission is to serve abused and neglected children in our community.
Yeah. Well, why did you found the organization, and what goals did you actually have in mind at the time you founded it?
Well, when it initially started, it was just a website with resources on it, some articles, things like that. That was maybe 4 years ago. Okay. And then towards the end of 2014, I started volunteering with a group called CASA. They're court-appointed special advocates. You work with youth in foster care in the court system. Started volunteering with them, and then I saw greater need. And then, so in early 2015 is when I became a 501c3. Okay. So it became an official organization then, and then just continues to grow.
Right. This subject is very personal for you. Yes. You make a distinction on your website between being a victim and being a survivor. Could you explain that, what you mean by that?
Throughout life, bad things happen to people, and sometimes you fall into that trap of being the victim, if you will, and that's where I see the drug addiction and things like that. With that, I wanted to overcome that, and I wanted to inspire others, and that's where the survivor part comes into it. Just to inspire others to kind of better themselves and help others in the community, and kind of move forward, try to overcome those issues from many years ago.
Yeah. The Blue Ribbon Project offers several outreach programs that serve the community, and I'd like to go through each one and have you basically provide us with an understanding of what that program is and what it does. And you just mentioned the first one, which is the Backpacks of Love. Yes. Can you talk about that?
Typically what happens when a child has to be removed from their home due to abuse and neglect, it happens very quickly. It's an emergency situation. The belongings they have oftentimes are put in trash bags, or sometimes they don't have belongings. When I entered foster care back in the 80s, I was at school at the time, so I didn't even get to go home to get my stuff. The family that I was volunteering with through CASA, when they entered care, it was the same thing. They were in their pajamas, and it was sad. And so I'm laying in bed one night, and I thought, something's got to change here. And it hit me while I'm laying there. I just said backpacks, and my thought at the time was I'd have a couple backpacks with emergency essentials that would have a couple of changes of clothing, toothbrush, toothpaste, things like that. And I thought it was just going to be a few backpacks, and that was it. We started collecting some donations. To get a couple together, I talked to the Department of Social Services. They were on board with it. They loved the idea. So we came up with a plan, and then what happens is Department of Social Services, they'll call me directly, and they'll say, we've got a 5-year-old girl and her 9-year-old brother. So I grab a backpack for a 5-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy, and I run them right out to them right when they're being removed from their home. And again, it's emergency essentials. They're divided by age and gender, so we go from newborn all the way up to 17 years old. So you can have a 3-month-old who's going to have a certain size diapers and certain size onesies and baby supplies in there. You may have a teenager who's 15 years old, so we have it for, a 15-year-old and a boy and a girl. So.
You've also got a program called Speak Up, Speak Out.
Yes, yes.
What's that about?
I think one of the keys to just raising awareness with child abuse is to make people aware. So I think a lot of times what we see with abuse cases through the police department and families that I've worked with through the Blue Ribbon Project, unfortunately, some people don't recognize abuse when it's happening. The signs are there. We just don't pick up on them. So I wanted to raise awareness. I wanted to talk about the signs, the symptoms, what you're looking for, things that you see, and offer some examples of what child abuse looks like, and then what do you do, and how to report it and things like that. That turned into some training for a lot of mandated reporters. So I do training for it could be doctors' offices, fire departments, foster parents, CASAs, things like that. Recently started opening that up to the general public, where the general public can come in. But that's all it's about, raising awareness and what you're looking for.
Yeah. You've also got one that's called Aging Up.
Yes.
And Out, or not out. Aging up, not
yes.
out.
Yep. There's a term, and I really can't stand the term, and it's called aging out. And what will happen is when a youth is in foster care, in the state of Maryland, it used to be 18, they've since moved it to 21. But when a youth is in foster care, and if they're not adopted and they remain in care, when they reach the age of 21, they just kind of get the boot. They don't have that safety net. They're out on their own. The system has changed a lot for the better over the years, whereas more programs and resources are available to them. So we wanted to offer some life skills classes, for these youth as they get older, to prepare them for their out on their own. And it's simple things. We have folks from BB&T Bank come in to talk about basic finance, how to open a checking account, balance a checkbook. We have cooking classes. We have drug addiction classes. Somebody from Chick-fil-A has come in to talk to the youth, not so much about Chick-fil-A, but the hiring process. This is what a job interview is like. This is when you make eye contact. This is how you shake hands. And it sounds kind of silly, but when I aged out of care, and I love sharing this story, although it's embarrassing, is nobody ever showed me how to tie a tie. And if you think of the things that your family and things you've learned over the years, so when I became a detective, I had to go to another detective in the office and say, "Hey, can you show me how to tie a tie?" He laughed at me, but I got it down a little bit. But so it's those basic life skills. So as the youth are aging out, to give them some kind of hope once they get out of the system.
Yeah. And you've got a program called Foster Friends.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Yes. So with Foster Friends, what we do is the Department of Social Services has funding available to foster parents for certain programs, but that funding is not always there. So what we'll do is we'll raise money to help a youth that, let's say they want to play soccer. Somebody has to pay the fees, somebody has to buy the uniform, or if somebody, we recently had a youth wanted to get onto a lacrosse team. So we helped them get onto the team. We purchased some of the equipment, the uniform for them. If a young lady wants to take ballet lessons or something like that, it's just those extra activities that really oftentimes aren't afforded the foster youth to do that. And we also set up special events. We have bowling events for foster youth. We have there's a gentleman, a former Raven, Torrey Smith. We connected with him. He's got a tournament that he does in Baltimore, where we had all these foster youth in their courtside seats at a basketball charity event. So things like that. It was really neat. It was a good time for the youth. It's just to kind of support them to do that.
And then finally, you've got a program called Job Connections.
Yes.
What does that?
Yep. So with Job Connect, what that entails is connecting with employers within the community. And one of the things that we run into, an obstacle for foster youth, is if there's a lot going on in a foster youth's life. They're going to have therapy one day of the week. They may have supervised visits with their biological family another day of the week. They may visit a psychologist. They have a lot going on. So they might only be available to work one day out of the week, especially if they're in school and things like that. Sometimes it's hard to find an employer that will, hey, I just need somebody on Thursday night. So we connect with various employers that offer a little bit of leeway with scheduling and things like that. They understand where these youth are, where they're coming from, and we get them started. We get them started in the work environment, and get them some job training and all that. Start that employment path for, again, preparing them for when they age out of the system.
I am certain that you have had lots of contact through the work that you've done with the Blue Ribbon Project with individuals who have been helped by the program. Are there any stories that you would like to share, without mentioning the names of people, who have really been helped by the program and that are really meaningful to you? Could you share some of those with our viewers?
Yeah, I think the biggest and I guess most touching reaction comes from Backpacks of Love, because where I'm lucky is when Department of Social Services calls me, I get to run the backpacks out to the youth. So I get to meet them. I turn the backpacks over. I try not to invade too much because they've got a lot going on at that time. But sometimes the reaction when they open these backpacks, and there was a young lady that stands out to me, 5 years old. I took a backpack over to Department of Social Services for her. Initially, she saw the backpack, and there's a popular program now called Frozen. So this Frozen character's on there. She gets excited about Frozen, just the backpack, not what was inside of it. Somebody tells her, "Hey, go ahead and open up. There's some stuff inside for you." So she opens up the backpack, and as she's digging through and she's excited, and I use the term Christmas times 10. She was just overwhelmed. And then she came across this pair of socks, and they were just rainbow-colored socks, multicolored. They came from Walmart, probably $1 or $2 for the pair. And she starts screaming ecstatically over these socks, and she's running around the Department of Social Services offices just screaming over these socks. And I was like, I can't believe that a pair of socks makes that much of a difference to this child. And then time after time when they're opening these things, there's different things. Saw a kid get excited over a stupid pencil, you know, and I'm just, and it just, you know, it's heartbreaking, but it's refreshing at the same time. And when I see that happen, I know that we're doing the right thing, that we're on the right track with all that. But seeing those reactions, I had mentioned the youth that we helped through foster friends to get his lacrosse uniform. The foster parents would send me pictures of him out on the field, and he was just, you know, not to share too much of his story, but this was a youth where really bad things happened to him as a child, and he's out there and he's playing lacrosse and he's flourishing, and it's just remarkable to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We're going to take a break now, but when we return, I will expand this conversation to talk about the problems that are presented by acts of child abuse. I am talking today with Detective Tom Pyles about an organization called the Blue Ribbon Project, which he has founded to deal with the scourge of child abuse. Tom, could you give our viewers a sense of how big the problem of child abuse is here in our community as well as nationally as well?
That's actually somewhat difficult to answer because there's a lot of abuse that goes unreported and things like that. So it's difficult to answer. You know, the cases that we do see, you know, they're pretty bad. And sometimes there might be other issues that are going on with the family that need to be addressed. So it may not necessarily fall under abuse or neglect. In those cases, Department of Social Services will come in and work with the family to try to help them. But a lot of it's underreported. One of the last resorts is a child going into foster care, and we've talked a lot about foster care and all that, but they really try to maintain the family, keep the family at home. And if a child does enter foster care, reunification is the goal. They want to work with the family to get that child back at home.
Child abuse and neglect can take many different kinds of forms, as you've suggested. Could you talk about these different forms that it can take and offer some tips on how it can be prevented?
Okay. The big one is just physical child abuse. It can be over disciplining a child. There can be a variety of things. There's, unfortunately, there's a lot of examples. It can be, punching, beating, biting, choking, things like that. And there's bad things that happen to these kids. And what I tell people when you're looking out for it, you want to look for changes in behavior in a child, especially if it's somebody that you work with. If you're a teacher and it's somebody who comes to school every day and you see those changes in behavior, typically withdrawn, things like that. If a child does present some sort of injury, does that injury make sense? Is it consistent? If the child says he fell off of a bike, is what you're seeing, is that consistent with, falling off of a bike? And we have to ask those questions. And if you suspect abuse, to report it, you can call 911 or you can call the Department of Social Services. And the great thing about the state of Maryland is you can remain 100% anonymous, and they will ask you for some of your information, but that information is never released, so that you're just known as a reporter. So it's, there's no, it's not going to come back to them that you're the one that made that call. And also in the state of Maryland with mandated reporters, there's actually some immunity that's involved. So if you report abuse and there's not, or even if there is, you're immune from civil and criminal liability for making that phone call. So there's those protections in place for those that report it. So the big thing is just, report it if you see it. The other big one that we really see is child sex abuse. That's, and again, if that's something that you suspect or a child discloses to you, it's important to report that. That needs to be, investigated by both the police department as well as Department of Social Services.
That's all very valuable information for our viewers to know that. What are some of the myths that exist about child abuse?
That's a really good question. One of the things, and it's good that parents teach their children the stranger danger, keeping out for strangers. Sometimes if we think of child sex abuse and things like that, we think of the creepy guy in the windowless van looking for the puppy and all that. But the reality of it is, child abuse and child sex assaults and things like that, it happens with trusted people that we know. It might be somebody in the neighborhood that everybody knows. It could be a coach or things like that. So in a majority of the cases, it's going to be somebody that knows the family and, the family, and unfortunately, they trust. It doesn't mean you can't trust people, but you do have to be, on the lookout for it. And I think that's the biggest myth is you want to keep your kids safe. And you think of, the strangers that are out there when they're more likely to be a victim of somebody that knows them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we certainly saw that occur with respect to the massive amount of abuse that was occurring in certain dioceses of the Roman Catholic Church, where you had pedophile priests, and you would think that would be the last category of people.
Yep, another one that comes up is Penn State.
That's right.
That's what they were people we trusted. Why can't you trust a priest and or a coach and things like that? Yeah. But the reality of it is, it's somebody that's going to know that child.
Yeah. If some of our viewers are thinking or considering entering the becoming a foster parent or adopting a child, what are the things that they really need to know before they take that step?
Every foster parent that I've talked to, they talk about how rewarding it is. There are challenges. You have children that are coming in. Sometimes there's behavioral issues. They've been a victim of abuse. There might be some underlying mental health issues that could have led to the abuse and that sort of thing. But every foster parent that I've talked to talk about just how rewarding and wonderful it is. And especially when you see a child removed from a particular environment and then they start to flourish while they're in the foster home. But it's something that should be explored. Here in Anne Arundel County, you can contact Department of Social Services. You can also contact the Anne Arundel County Foster Parents Association, and they can put you in touch with foster parents, and they can share their direct experiences, with what it is. For those that are really reluctant to make that step, but they still want to get involved with foster children and be kind of part of that process, there's always CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. You work with those kids that are in foster care, and at the end of the day, you kind of take them home, but you make sure that the right things are happening for those children.
The Blue Ribbon Project is a 100% volunteer organization. What do you use volunteers for? How can volunteers help you? We may have some viewers who are watching the show today who are going to say, I'd really like to get involved with that organization. So what would they do? What kinds of activities do you involve volunteers with?
We have a variety of things. Our biggest thing for volunteers is assisting with the Backpacks of Love. There's a lot of donations that come in for the backpacks. Somebody has to assemble all the backpacks. You determine the age, and we build these backpacks, from scratch. Somebody has to do all that. It's somewhat labor. It's fun and it's rewarding to do, but it is labor intensive. So it takes people to do that. So what we've done is we've set up these volunteer days that we'll announce on our website and via email, and we'll bring in a group of people. It can be families, it can be church groups, it can just be individuals. They come in on those days, and we go through donations and we build backpacks. Sometimes we'll also need help at different volunteer events. We may have a fundraiser somewhere, or we may have a youth foster event going on. If any of the volunteers are going to work directly with any of the foster youth, we do a strict background check on them and things like that. But a majority of our need is, like I said, with the Backpacks program.
Even as a volunteer organization, you need money. Those things are very, 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 very important. How do you derive the funding that you need to keep this excellent program continuing? And you do so many good things. Where do you derive your funding? And you certainly do need it.
It's from folks within the community that provide donations. They can donate right on our website. We do have a couple grants. We're not getting any government funding or anything like that. But it's just in the local community. And as things have grown, our financial need has grown as well. Initially, it started small. We had a very small building that was donated to us. We've since expanded to leasing some space out in Crownsville, the old Crownsville Hospital Center. So now we have a monthly rent to pay and things like that. But it comes from just people in the community that want to help.
Okay. What would you see as the greatest accomplishment of the Blue Ribbon Project? How would you describe it?
Well, I'd love to end child abuse. My ultimate goal is to build what I'd like to be known as the Maryland Child Abuse Center, where we can expand into other counties. The Blue Ribbon Project has expanded into other counties, but to go statewide and actually set the standard for child abuse investigations and public awareness and things like that. So.
How about things that you've already done? What are you most proud of the things that you've already actually accomplished?
That's tough, only because I never expected things to grow the way they did. I thought, my wife and I joke about it, thought we would have just a couple backpacks laying around and DSS would call on occasion, and turns out that wasn't the case. It's right now we're in Anne Arundel County, recently went in Baltimore County, Calvert County, Charles County, Kent County, Queen Anne's County. So I never expected all that growth. So I'm really proud. I'm really happy that these different communities want to get involved and want to make a difference. So that, to me, I think that's just a huge accomplishment that people want to get together and make it happen.
Okay. I'm certain that many of our viewers are going to want to be able to learn more about the Blue Ribbon Project, Tom, because you've got a very compelling enterprise here. It's really, I think, making a big difference in terms of helping people who have had the experience of being abused as a child. And I think you'll find that there'll be a lot of folks who'll want to reach out to you. What is the best way that people can contact your organization? Do you have a website?
We do.
Okay, what is that website?
Our website is blueribbonproject.org.
All one word?
All one word, blueribbonproject.org.
Okay, all right. And do you currently have a telephone number?
We do. I typically don't publish that,
okay,
only because sometimes we're not a full-time operation. Since we're a volunteer, it's hard to answer. With that said, our website is the best way to contact us. There is a contact us link there. That
Okay.
message will go directly to me. And the other great thing about our website is it talks about upcoming events, the volunteer days, how to get involved, and also provides information on abuse. So that's typically the best way, is everything through the website.
Okay, so that is the blueribbonproject.org.
Yes.
So that is how viewers, you can learn more about this organization that Tom Pyles has put together. Thank you for viewing our program today, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like to have more information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, please jot down the information that is on the screen. You can reach us at 410-263-7998 or by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov. And check out our page at the City of Annapolis website. Go to www.annapolis.gov, click on City Government, then Boards and Commissions, and you can scroll down to the Human Relations Commission page. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the seas like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."